Barcelona, one of the most lively harbour cities on the Mediterranean, and after Madrid, Spain's second largest city and the capital of Catalonia. On the wide and shady boulevard that travels through the old town to the harbour, life goes on both night and day. Here, street artists perform, shoeblacks work diligently, and skillful portrait painters soon complete their latest masterpiece. Next to the street is Lebekar, the city's finest and most appealing food market. It's located in an ostentatious courtyard surrounded by arcades and was built on the site of a former monastery. In the early morning, it's possible to buy almost anything here. Everything is fresh and appetizing. On the other side of the Rambla is Barrigotic, the old town's Gothic district, at the centre of which is Lasso Cathedral. The monumental building was many years in construction, and the main facade and portal were completed in 1890. Reconstruction of what had been a Christian church destroyed by the Moors began in the 11th century, and in the 14th it was given its Gothic appearance. The cloister encircles a small courtyard that contains a well, palm trees, and geese. They are particularly adept at deterring uninvited guests. The small dark alleys around the cathedral are testament to the somewhat cramped building style of medieval times. There was little space within the walls of the city. Intimate squares, small palaces, and tangled alleys provide a good insight into the history and daily life of the old city. This is where it all began. Iberians, Greeks, and Romans had their trading posts here, but it was not until 15 BC that the city began to blossom. Many dramatic events took place here until in 1137 Barcelona had grown into a great kingdom that competed with both Venice and Genoa. By way of aggressive expansion, Barcelona enjoyed a high season of both cultural and financial success. Jaume the Just led his kingdom, that also comprised Sicily, Naples, Corsica and Sardinia, to a position of ultimate power. At that time, Barcelona was at the center of a momentous cultural development that was taking place in medieval Europe. The Museu Marítim Drassanes is situated in the royal dockyards that were built when the city was at its zenith. Its buildings are unique examples of Gothic architecture. The vast dimensions of the dockyard allowed 30 ships to be built simultaneously in the name of the Catalonian Aragon crown. Great ocean adventures, discoveries and conquests, as well as the courage of the country's seafarers, are on display in various exhibition rooms. Multimedia presentations highlight the colorful way of life experienced on board the 16th century royal sailing ships. Next to the dockyards is the old harbour of Port Vell. A huge 60-metre-high column of Christopher Columbus greets those caught in the busy hustle and bustle of the surrounding area. For the first World Exhibition in 1888, Gaeta Buigas built this remarkable monument, from the top of which there's a good view of both city and harbour. For the 1922 Olympic Games, the harbour area was transformed into an amazing entrance gate to the city, with yacht harbour, entertainment facilities and numerous terrace bars. The old harbour office was fully restored and is now one of the most beautiful buildings of the 19th century. The city has always met the challenges of the sea, and today the same is true. Located by the Columbus statue, a pleasure trip on one of the small boats that were first built in 1888 and known as the Golondrinas is a good way to see the sights. The round trip passes newly built harbour buildings and the world's largest cantilever bridge that opens up to make way for larger vessels. The industrial harbour of Barcelona, that is in the south of the old basin and at the foot of the Montjuic mountain, is full of activity around the clock. The return journey travels through the urbanized Mall de Barcelona and also the Mall d'España. From a distance and built in arabesque style are the harbour office and customs house. Finally, the fascinating trip comes to an end. exterior of the harbour basin is formed by a palm-lined sandy beach and also a cable railway station. A little unusual and extremely interesting, a journey on the Transbordador Yrée, a cable railway that travels from the harbour district. The cable cars glide high above the water and ships down below. There's a wonderful view of the city. Montjuic Mountain is the destination. The cable car service is frequent and carries a large number of people up the mountain. It's an extraordinary experience of vertigo plus fabulous views. The Funicular de Montjuic is another alternative. The mountain is highly significant in that it was the location of Barcelona's first settlement. During the hostile conflicts between Castile and Catalonia, the Castello was transformed into a mighty fortress with huge walls and defensive ditches. During the Spanish Civil War, Montjuic Mountain also played an important strategic role. It provided a good view of enemy forces and their positions. In its centuries-long conflict with Madrid, the seat of power, Barcelona came off second best, especially when Spanish colonial rule came to an end. The funicular returns down the Magic Mountain, as it's referred to by the local inhabitants, to a station located in the middle of the mountain. Close by, the Miró Museum was built in 1992 within the transformed National Palace. Here, much of the work of the celebrated magician Joan Miró is exhibited, a man that enchanted the crowds with his charisma and mystique. Near to the foot of the mountain is the splendid Palau Nacional, one of the city's most impressive sights and built for the World Exhibition with great historical panache. From a huge terrace, there's a view of a magic well that extends to the Plaza de España, with broad steps leading down both sides. Two Venetian towers mark the monumental entrance into the World Exhibition area. It all adds up to a magnificent view, with the well and the Palau Nacional in the background. Few parks are as famous as the Parc Güell. With this, Antoni Gaudí created a new design concept in this fabulous garden city. At its entrance, Gaudí placed a colourful lizard as a symbol of the water that is collected in subterranean cisterns and is used for the distribution of water in the park. striking snake bench is a major attraction. It was built to serve as the frame for a roof of the market hall. The market hall forms part of a large complex that dominates the entrance area. The impressive hall is supported by 90-meter thick Doric columns. Adjoining it are the cave-like corridors that Gaudi built especially for his Mecenas Giuseppe Guel, who saw the realization of his childhood dreams in Gaudi's creation. Nearly 3 kilometers of paths wind over this elevated area. Here both art and nature combine in perfect harmony. Of 60 homes that were originally planned here, only 2 were realized, one of them for the artist himself. The Casa Museo Gaudi. Gaudi actually inhabited his own work of art and lived there until some months prior to his death in 1926. Later, the work of the brilliant eccentric became the focus of a special museum. All the furnishings were designed by the master himself and are an extraordinary example of Catalonian Art Nouveau. Gaudi transformed what had been a relatively ordinary hillside into a scenic park that is today enjoyed by one and all. The city itself also featured in Gaudi's magnificent fantasies. The Palau Güell was treated to an ostentatious roof with a great array of air shafts and chimneys. But the sight that captures the imagination of most who see it is the amazing facade of the Casa Mila, a unique apartment block without equal. Not a single wall is straight. Glass and plaster were used for its facade, and colorful ornamental ceramics completed the work. Mainly due to Japanese tourists, these treasures of modernism were later reawakened. La Sagrada Familia, the Unfinished. In 1883, Antonio Gaudi was given the go-ahead to work on the construction of the partly completed Church of the Poor. This remarkable building is situated north of the center of Barcelona and was designed to depict the return to the doctrine of the Catholic Church. Gaudi dedicated the last 40 years of his life to what remains to be his main yet unfinished masterpiece. Even today, its main hall is a huge building site. But despite the scaffolding, its huge columns still display great originality and incredible sculptures. For his images, Gaudi used wire and pieces of linen moistened with plaster. They were hung upside down to create surreal, flowing forms. The various decorative stone elements are crafted in special workshops. Here, unique works of art are created according to the detailed plans of the great master. This temple of the Holy Family was built according to certain financial constraints. However, Gaudi's artistic temperament far exceeded any such restrictions. White marble doves of peace highlight the fundamental principles of the Society of the Worship of Holy Joseph that formed the basis of this huge church. Each facade contains a portal that symbolizes the three theological virtues: faith, hope, and charity. Numerous biblical motifs are illustrated in sharp-edged forms and frame the archways to the gates. Because Gaudi believed that the real world should be depicted without any artistic embellishment, each of these statues and figures was replicated from photographs and plaster images of everyday people in the streets of Barcelona. Today, this impressive church, whose completion was applauded by Gaudi, is a very popular symbol of Barcelona, as well as a subject of controversy between the city fathers. The master wanted to crown his lifetime work with this religious building, and he achieved his goal. But alas, La Sagrada Familia remains unfinished. The Carro de Caballos travels along the Ramblas, a tree-lined street with an incomparable atmosphere of luxury. We travel on through the alleys of Barcelona, which is surely Europe's most beautiful Mediterranean city of culture. Passing by a park that was created specially for the Olympic Games, and which became an integral part of this remarkable city. Barcelona's new face is one of imagination and flair. Not far away from the harbour is the zoo, a very modern and innovative environment for a large range of wildlife. Here, rhinoceros, elephants and giraffe live in spacious enclosures with an abundance of trees that recreate their natural habitat. The aquarium and dolphinarium are the zoo's most spectacular attractions, including dolphin displays that are extremely popular with visitors. The watery world of the dolphin can also be observed through thick glass walls, while the seals continuously seek attention. The zoo is famous for its many species of primate, and Snowflake is the only known albino gorilla in the world. The zoo is a successful combination of adventure, entertainment, and the exotic. The entire city is a melting pot that ranges from Gothic to modernism, a veritable explosion of joie de vivre and creativity. Barcelona, a rose that grew from the flames of history.